Hey, it's Riley Blake Day here at Sew in Common. Hi, everybody. Diana here. And today it's Riley Blake Day, and we are going to be doing the Riley Blake Challenge block number 7. Lucky number 7 this week. So grab your 5x7 hoops, not upside down. Grab your 5x7 hoop. Grab yourself some wash away stabilizer. I'm going to tell you where you can get your free Build a Quilt pattern set here in just a little bit. And you can do the Riley Blake Challenge for 2024 along with us, but with patchwork in the hoop. Isn't that great? Yeah, I love it. So how did that come about? About a dozen of you who apparently you guys stitched together. I think that's truly awesome. You wrote me a little note and you said, Diana, is there any way that you would be willing to do the Riley Blake Block Challenge in Build a Quilt for us? Can it be done? And so I knew that Riley Blake had done a challenge last year in 2023. Well, actually, they've done like 4. This is like their 4th year, I think. So I went and looked on their website. All that information will be in the description, so you can go and get all the stuff you need from them as well, because I do recommend that you download their materials as well, because it'll be helpful for you. But I looked it over and I thought, you know what? I think that I can do these. I can transcribe these, as it were, into the Build a Quilt system, which is patchwork in the hoop. And we've been doing it. And this week we're on block number 7. But before we start block number 7, stay with me till the end of this section, because I have some information about block number 8 and a little bit of other surprise information for you that I've kind of been looking for and was able to find. And then at the end, we will have 2 little short video clips. One is how to make the special flying geese unit, and one is going to be how to make the center block, which is a version of the album block. Okay, we made an album block last year with Build a Quilt. It was a variation on a block, but there are several album blocks out there. Hang on just. So the album block, it really was popular in the 1840s and 1850s out on the East Coast, on the Eastern Seaboard. And they were just pieced blocks. And typically an album quilt, each block was pieced or called something that was important to that family. And that's how some of our blocks got their names. Well, the center of this week's block is a version of an album block. And I think it is what stands for the crossed part, because this week's block is called Star Crossed by Heather Peterson. So again, we'll go over that in a minute, but let's do our quick review of the blocks. This is block 1 called Vintage Delight by Lori Holt. I love it. Now, you all know that I'm not using the Riley Blake fabrics because I couldn't get them, but I'm trying to use the same colors that they're using. Block number 2 is Sparkle and Shine by Beverly McCullough. I really liked how that one turned out. Pretty block. Block number 3 by one of my favorite designers. I love Amy Smart. I make no bones about it. I think she's great. Her block is called Dalesford. Beautiful 8-pointed star with a pinwheel in the center, made with what we know as modified half square triangles. Very pretty block, Amy. Thank you for that one. Beautiful colors. Then week number 4 was the Framed Star by Fran Gullock. And you all know that we figured out a whole new Build a Quilt segment piece. Instead of doing this in 2 modified half square triangles, we came up with, or I came up with, the modified flying geese unit for us, this one. And so we were able to take out some of the seams and all in that block. It turned out really well that way. I really liked how that one turned out. And then week number 5 is Dazzle by Christy Lee. And someone reminded me that even though it's a little hard to see with all the colors, this looks very much like a maypole block, that kind of pinwheel and a pinwheel. So that was a good one there. Got pretty much all the colors in it. And then last week was week 6, Bloom Where You Are Planted by Jennifer Long. Whoops, there we go. You can see it better. Pretty. And this one that week's block was all about the block with the little flippy corners. Even our leaves had little flippy corners, and that worked out great because this month's quilt lab block, the St. George's cross that I created, is all about flippy corners too. So it was another way. So we normally have been doing flippy corners based on squares, but in our leaves, we did flippy corners based on triangles. And so it was a very similar idea. We're just working with a different shape. So it shows you that you can do those kinds of things on any base, as long as there's a corner there for you to do the flippy on, right? Alrighty, so let me move my folder of my Riley Blake patterns over and bring in this week's. I'm sorry, I've got, my voice is kind of coming and going. It's just allergies. It's been, we had a really wild, bad thunderstorm, lightning, everything started about midnight last night and ran till about 10 this morning. And so it was a completely gloomy day. The sun is coming out now, and it is not even the middle of March yet, and we already have stuff blooming. Our old saying around here is you don't plant anything before Mother's Day, because we always get a hard frost right before Mother's Day. I'm not sure this year. Things are starting to bloom and come alive so much earlier. All our trees are in bud. Our grass is greening up already. And that's why my voice is coming and going, because I've got allergies to all that beautiful stuff. I know it's hard, but you know, I do my piece. So this week it's all about Heather Peterson's star-crossed block. Okay. So let's flip the camera real quick. I found some bios on these folks. So I'm going to start showing them to you, for the different designers that are doing these blocks for Riley Blake. And this week, this is Heather Peterson of Annika's Treasures. So you can look up her bio and her fabrics and stuff over at the Riley Blake page if you want to. So we have Heather to thank for this week's beautiful block, Star-Crossed. Now, we did a block of my own called Star-Crossed last year. This is different. This is her block. See how blocks get similar or different names, and they can be different and all of that. It's just because that's what we do. That's how we do it in quilting, right? You come up with a name, and then somebody does their own block and they come up with a name. But anyway, let's look at our beautiful block. Here is our Star-Crossed block. As you know, all these blocks are finishing up by 10 by 10 finished. And so you can see it's just an 8-point star. And this 8-point star is created with what I'm calling a special flying geese unit, because, and in the flying geese demo video at the end of this, I talked to you about it more. There's some space left here. Normally a flying geese would come right out. There would be it would come right out on each side like that, the wings. However, in this one, there's some space left here. And I bet a lot of you quilters that have been quilting for a long time in more traditional methods, I bet you know why that is. Do you see this star? See how beautiful you can see all of the points? Let's look at one of the other star blocks. Let's look at Amy's Dalesford block. Do you see how in these, the flying geese units come all the way down to the end? Now with Build A Quilt, we have our seam allowance and all built in, so we're not going to end up losing our points. But sometimes when your points come all the way out like that on your stars, and then you seam them into your quilt, you can lose that little bitty tip. Doesn't bother me one single iota. I don't even miss a heartbeat on that, because you can still tell it's a star. But if you want your star to look floating and those points to be just pristine and perfect, then if you're going to use a flying geese unit for your star points, then you're going to use this special flying geese unit so that you have the little bit of space there and your points aren't going to end up in your seam. And that's probably what Heather was thinking as a quilter. I'm sure she knows all about that. And I bet that's part of why she chose to do her flying geese units that way. So we're calling them the special flying geese unit. And that is the special part right there. So this block is made up of 4 half square triangles. The coral, the darker blue or royal blue, I think they call it, the magenta or fuchsia pink, and the dark green. And then your flying geese units, your special flying geese units, you're going to make 2 sets of 2, and 2 of them are going to be with the red and green wings. Those will be on your east and west pole positions. And on your north-south pole positions, you're going to have the light blue and the orange, okay? So that is, I didn't flip the demo in for the half square triangle because we've done it a million times. You guys know how to do your half square triangle. And if you don't, just look for the half square triangle video, the mama of all patchwork blocks here on the channel, and you'll find that easily. Okay, so here in the center, this is your album block. It is a version of an album block, and it really is an X or a cross. So star, crossed, right? Cool, very cool. And it is 4 yellow blocks, 1 pink block, and a bunch of little white triangles. And this block is made in 3 pieces, and you'll see how, let's see if I can do this so you can see it. You're going to be doing 2 what I call the A-B segments, A and B. They're done exactly the same. You don't turn them around, flip them around, or anything like that. You make them the same because as this second one rotates into position, it rotates in exactly the way it should be. So no concern there. And then you're going to be making, let me grab another sheet of paper here. You're going to be making this center segment, which I call that's really hard to see, isn't it? Sorry, guys. Let's put that there. So this segment right here, I call the C segment because it is made. And then for the layout, I didn't do a layout video this week. I thought we would just talk through it right here. So when you go to lay this out, you're going to stitch together a flying geese unit and 2 half square triangles for the bottom and for the top. That's your top and bottom row. Those are your 2 rows. Now we need that 3rd row in the center. So once you've pieced your album block together, this half to the center and this half to the center, you are going to want to then put your flying geese units on each side of it. That makes your 3rd row. So you'll need to piece this center before you add your flying geese. And then you'll have row 1, row 2, row 3, or 1, 2, 3, whether you count from the top down or the bottom up. And that will be your 3 rows to put together. So it's kind of the way we've pieced, some of our other blocks. Let's see, which one did we piece like that? We pieced this one, the sparkle and shine, like that. You pieced your center block and then you put your 2 sides onto it. That's the same way we're going to piece this one because we need to get those 3 rows. Okay, so very simple to do. Now, let's take a look real quick at the back of this one, because you know how I normally open up all my seams, and I kind of need to repress these. I was up kind of late pressing these and I kind of messed them up a little bit. Did I press anything differently here? I did not. Okay, this is not the one that I pressed differently. So the back is like always. Oh, it is in the center. Let's look at the center block here, the album block. In this center, instead of opening these seams up, I just press them to the side. The wings, or the 2 corner parts, the A and B segments, tended to fall open that way. And so I pressed them that way, and it turned out much better than trying to open those up and press them out. And that is a pro tip for you with your quilting, especially if you're new. You know, with Build a Quilt, we open our seams a lot to get bulk out of our seams. With traditional quilting, we learn to put our seams to the darker fabric so that we don't have shadowing coming through. It's called pressing to the dark side. I love that. And when I piece in the traditional manner, I always press to the dark side. That's how I was taught. There's actually a very specific reasoning for that. It doesn't hold true in modern quilting as much, but way back 55 plus odd years ago, it really did matter. So how you do your seams truly, in regardless of what technique you're using, is up to you. But in this manner, we normally piece with the seams open. However, regardless of the technique that you're using, when you are piecing your blocks together, if they tend to lay better, smoother and flatter without opening them up, just pressing them to the side, then do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And in the end, it's probably going to end up being your best move. When I do that on these blocks, I'm telling you, because I found in the process that it made the block smoother. It made it lay better to do it that way. So when you stitch this this album block together and you stitch the wings to the center or the triangles to the center, just fold them over and press. Don't need to open up the seams on that part. I opened up the seams everywhere else, but not on that part. Okay, so that is the way to do that and to get your best result. Okay, alrighty. So this is your Build a Quilt pattern set. You've got all of your supplies, all of that, and then you're getting your cut sheets. I'm telling you how many to make, what you're going to cut, and then whether or not you're going to subcut it, because on this half square triangles, I'll tell you right now, you're going to cut 4 squares and then you're going to cut them all on the diagonal so that you have 2 triangles. You are only going to use one of those triangles because you're only making 4 half square triangles. So those other 4 halves, set those aside. There might come a time in this challenge where we'll need those, and then we'll have them done. Or not, if not, put them in your pre-cut drawer that has all your little pre-cut segments in it that you do at the end of any stitching. And then you have them for any project that you want to use them for. All right, so your half square triangles. Then we have the one for the special flying geese unit. And then we have the one for, so sorry about my voice. Then we have the one for the center. Okay, and so you can see you've got your 2 halves and you've got your center there. So you can see the different segment pieces right on here. Then I've given you the layout, and the layout is the actual picture of that block. When I laid it out instead of a diagram, I showed you my actual layout. And I also used it, I always show you the block finished at the end. And so that is all available. All of these patterns are available over at the website sewincommon.com. So you've got your 5x7 hoop to make your segments. You've got your wash away stabilizer. Now you can go over to the website and grab your patterns. And if you don't have all of them, go ahead and grab them all. They're all free. I'm doing these translation into Build a Quilt free as well, so that this whole thing is a free kind of quilt along block challenge along with Riley Blake, because it's their patterns, their designs and stuff. So we're going to do it that way. And that way everybody's happy and we all get to have fun together. I love it. All righty. All right. So I told you I had some information that I did a little digging on, and some information about block 8. So let's talk about what I found. Where did I put? I've got all my blocks and stuff stuck up here now. Oh, here it is. All right. So I told you I didn't know how this quilt was going to come together. I didn't know by chance if this block was going to end up being a block that would get made maybe a couple of times and would like blend different parts of the quilt together. Well, it isn't. Riley Blake every week also does their own video for the traditional quilting format. And they have at the front in their little opening, they have the quilt and they pop that week's block into the quilt so you can kind of see it coming alive. So I just kind of made one up in my notebook so I kind of knew where it was. So like right now, up here is the Sparkle and Shine block. Here's the frame star. The star-crossed one looks like it's going to end up being right in the center. Dalesford, Vintage Delight, Bloom Where You're Planted, and Dazzle. Dazzle is the one with all of the half square triangles. The one that looked like the maypole. That's the Dazzle. Okay. So what I'm going to do for us in my software is I will take all of my little thumbnails of the completed blocks that you see on your patterns, and I'll shrink them down and I'll make us a little chart like that. And then each week we can kind of see where that new block is going to go. You'll see that at the beginning of the next video for block 8. Now, speaking of block 8, it came out on Tuesday. Oh my goodness, is it a beautiful block? And I thought it was going to be a real whopper of a block to have to digitize. It isn't. And I've been able once again to create it with less seams for us. Okay. It is by Jill Finley and it's called Glisten. Do you want to see it? Do you want to see it? Oh, there we go. That's what it looks like. Isn't that pretty? But see all of that in the center and how the corners have all those pieces. I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to have a lot of putting things together like we do here. Mm-mm. The way I've digitized it is these corner blocks are going to be one block, and these flying geese, these modified flying geese with the strip of fabric, all one unit. So we're not making several units and having to put them together. So the way it is done here is 2 modified half square triangles with a strip on top. Well, I've done the flying geese unit and that strip on top all as one piece that doesn't have to be stitched together. So that's going to save you time. It's also going to save you seaming. We like that, less bulk. So, however, that special flying geese is very similar to the other one I created, except this is split in 2, and it was easy. It was easy to do it in the digitizing, because I am to that point. Now, normally this would come out next Thursday, and then block 9 that comes out next Tuesday would come out the week after that. And we would always be 1 week behind. And I kind of hate that. It gets me all kind of weirded out. I get anxious about that. I want us to be on time with this quilt along, because we started 5 weeks into it. And within just a couple of weeks, we're like, this is this week's block and it's not done yet. So we're only like 1 week behind. However, we're not going to be 1 week behind. Oh, no. Sunday for Quilt Lab. You know, normally Sundays for Quilt Lab is all about the block of the month. And we're going to talk about this some on Sunday as well. But Sunday for Quilt Lab, I will show you the diagram that I create for this quilt along with the challenge to where the blocks will go. And we will be doing the glisten block. Block number 8 we'll be doing this Sunday. So you're going to have another free Riley Blake block challenge pattern this week. And we're going to do the video and all the demo videos for it on Sunday. That way on Tuesday, when that block comes out, we are up to date. I'll get that block done and we'll be right with them, with everyone else. Because I know for me, like when I go on other social media apps like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, I'm seeing the blocks that we haven't had done, and it's making me want to cry because I want to have them done too. So we're going to be all caught up come Sunday. Isn't that great? All right, everybody. Those were the 2 special things about block 8 and about the quilt in general that I had to tell you. So again, get over to this website. I've already had to fill the inventory for this block because you folks know that I actually put it out sometimes the night before. And by the time I woke up this morning, all the copies that I had in there were gone. So you guys have caught on to my little trick, which is fine. So, but if you went on and it wasn't there, you couldn't get it, it said out, it's back now. Okay. And so head over to the website and you can get all the copies of all the blocks that I showed you that we've done so far. And the one for Sunday for Glisten, I don't know if it will come out Saturday night or not. I don't know that yet, but it might, it might, it might, I don't know. But Sunday will be that block during Quilt Lab. We're going to talk about that. All right, everybody, please. Oops, that's not what I wanted to show you. I wanted to ask you right here, please start putting your blocks on Facebook. I don't know why you all aren't posting on Facebook your pictures. Is it hard? Do you not know how to do that? If you don't, let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to do a little video on showing you how to do that, because we want to see your beautiful blocks and your beautiful quilt as it gets made. So do it. I can't wait to see it. Anyway, if you folks need to get a hold of me this week, you can do that at support@sewincommon.com. However, if you have a question about the block, or I've asked a question for comment in the video, please put it in these comments for the video. That way we all get to share and we all get to see, because I get loaded down with email from you folks and I love it. You don't need to stop, but a lot of it is stuff that I could answer in the comments for everybody instead of having to answer it singly. So if you've got something regarding this, put it in the comment. Otherwise, please feel free to contact me at support@sewincommon.com whenever you like. All righty. And please, if you haven't yet, that little button right there that you see that looks like the two little spools of thread, click on it and subscribe to this channel, would you please? I would love to have you as part of the Sew in Common family. We are well over 350,000 subscribers now. And don't you for a minute think that not one of you don't mean the world to me. You really do. I'm blown away and overwhelmed by your generosity, your support, and your care, and the fun that we get to have making these quilts together. So please subscribe, and please go ahead and share these videos and click the like button. The more you do that, the more people can find us. And that's how this group has grown. So please go ahead and share and like the videos, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I have never felt so much love and support from a group of quilters than I have from all of you. So thank you all very much. All righty, everybody. I'm about to tell you, what I'm about to say. And as soon as I say it, the video will click into the demos. The demos will be for the Special Flying Geese unit and the album block, the center section of this week's Star-Crossed block by Heather Peterson. All right, everybody, until Sunday with Quilt Lab, when we're going to do block number 8, go sew life beautiful. Bye for now. Okay, everybody, here we are at the machine, and I just wanted to show you real quick. These are the 4 half square triangles that you'll be making from the half square triangle segment pattern that's in the kit or in the pattern set. You'll have this picture showing you that you're making one of each color in the instruction set as well. But you're going to be making one in the darker blue, one in the darker green, one in the coral, and one in the magenta fuchsia color. Okay, so that's that. And I'm not adding on the demo for that. We've done half square triangles a million times, and I know you all know how to do them. However, if you're new, just look here on the channel for my half square triangle, the mama block of all patchwork video, and that will show you how. But this one is so easy, and I know we've done it a million times, so I'm not going to demo that one this week. However, what we're going to demo right now is the I'm calling it the Special Flying Geese unit, because although it looks just like your regular old Flying Geese unit, have you noticed something right here? Let me lift this up a little bit. Do you notice something right here? The Flying Geese unit doesn't come all the way down into the corner the way a normal Flying Geese unit does. They're leaving some space here, and I suspect the reason why is because they don't want you cutting off any of the points in your seam allowance. A lot of times with star blocks, they're created, and if your seam isn't exactly perfect, you'll cut off just a little bit of your points in the seam allowance. Now, that doesn't bother me one little twiddle, right? I could care less. I still know it's a star. It still looks great. But the way to get around that is in the body of the flying geese unit, you leave yourself more of that fabric on the sides than of the wing fabric, okay? So that's why I'm calling it special, because it's a little bit different in that way. Now, you're going to be making 2 sets in 2 different colorways, and this was set 1 that I created. You'll also see photographs of this in your instructions. And they're both, for both colorways, made exactly the same way. You're going to do orange and light blue on this set. And then on the set we're about to demo, we're going to be doing lime green and red. And you're placing them, even though they look like they're in different places, when you go to place these, they're going to end up being in the same exact space. So this one is right here. These are on the side. It starts out, so the blue would be in this corner, and then when you come around, the orange is in this corner here. So you make them exactly the same because they're just rotating to get into the right space. So they don't have to be done as opposites. Just do them exactly the same, and you'll be just okay for that, okay? All right, now let's go ahead and do the demo. I've already stitched out my boundary box for the whole piece. Now the next step gets stitched right onto the stabilizer as well, and it is where the placement of the main fabric, which happens to be the white fabric, will go. And then, let's see, I want to make sure yet. So the green will go on this side and the red will go on this side. And this is the fabric I'm choosing for my line. That's what I've been using up. And then I just have a regular old red for my red. And of course, the Riley Blake design sheet, that one, will give you all the information you need if you're using the Riley Blake fabrics. So now I'm going to pull this out because I want to see my piece a little bit better and show you here. So here you can see this is my my boundary box for the first piece. So I'm going to put a little bit of my glue stick on there, and I'm going to take my white fabric and I'm going to lay it down just like this. There we go. Now I'll place this back in and we'll do machine step 3. And this block will require a wee bit of trimming, and we do that after this step. So it shouldn't be a problem at all. All righty. Now let's take a look at this and then we'll trim. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to hold it up a little closer. So you can see here where a normal flying geese, this line would come right down into this corner. It would be a pure diagonal line. Here we have just this little bit of a flat side, and that's the part that gives you that extra space that you see in our finished one right here on the edges on both sides. All right, so now we're going to trim just like we've done before. You're going to take your scissors and you're going to trim this wing part off and this wing part off. And I'm coming in here and I'm giving it a good eye view. That's a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, but that's not a problem because the seam is built in. There we go. So looks great, right like that. Now we start out with the right side wing, and that is red for this set. So I'm going to go ahead, pro tip, and put my little glue bit right there so I don't have to mess around with it. Now I'm going to lay my fabric right here. There we go. And pop that right back into the machine. And this is machine step 4. And now I'm going to flip it. So the rest of this is created just like any old regular flying geese, but I wanted to show you this because I didn't want you to be confused by this extra little bit at the bottom, and I wanted to explain what that is for. All right, so there is my red wing, and now we're going to do the green, the lime green. This is the lime green, or the lighter of the greens. We do the 1/2 square triangle in the darker green in this pattern. That's the only piece that has darker green on it. Alrighty, now I'm going to lay my fabric down just like before. Go ahead and put a little glue there. And we'll stitch this down. And this is machine step 6. There's 8 machine steps for the flying geese unit. And according to my machine at 700 stitches per minute, it takes 2 minutes to stitch this out. I think if I weren't talking, I actually think it's quicker than that, but that's what the machine says. Now we're going to flip it and we're going to stitch this down, and then we'll need just 1 piece of tape for taping down pieces that could get caught up in our final stitching guideline box. So I'm going to grab myself a little piece of my tape. And so I don't need tape here, even though that's a pretty big piece of fabric sitting there. I don't need tape because it's going to come right across. This one's going to come right across, but this one could get caught. So again, pro tip, not on the line of stitching, but out here beyond it. So it's holding that down, but allowing the foot just to slide right over that. And that way you don't have to pull that tape out of the stitching. And in your 5x7 hoop, you can do 2 of these in a hooping. Now I'm using my 6x6 hoop, and I was also able to do both of these in my hooping. So it'll take 2 hoopings to do the special flying geese. With my 6x6, I was able to do all 4 of my 1/2 square triangles, but because they're 2.5 by 2.5, you're probably only going to be able to do 2 or 3 in a 5x7 hooping. So you're going to have a couple of multiple hoopings there. All right, now let me just peel this off. If I can get my finger under it. There we go. Pop that right back up there, and I can reuse it, and that's great. Now I'm going to bring up my moving button, and I'm going to move this all the way down to the bottom. And we're going to do the second one in the same hooping. And I do the same colors each time in each set. That way I'm not confused. I know where everything goes. They look exactly alike. Everything will turn out just fine. So the first machine step gets stitched right onto the stabilizer. And the second machine step does as well, and that's this next step. There we go. I'm thinking I'm going to need a new. I'm hoping I can get through this one. I'm playing a little bit of bobbin roulette. Have you guys done that before? I'm sure you have. If you've been machine embroidery or quilting or sewing even for another time, your bobbin gets a little bit low and you're like, oh, can I just get this piece done? Well, we're going to see if I've got enough to get this final flying geese unit done or not. All right, so I'm actually going to bring this out and set it right here. I'm going to put a wee bit of my glue on there. And I'm going to place my white fabric. And it doesn't matter that the white fabrics overlap right here. That's outside of the seam allowance. That'll all get trimmed off, so don't worry about that. Now, with your 5x7, you might not have that either, but with the with my 6x6, I get that overlap because I have 1 inch less in space vertically than you do with a 5x7. Okey-doke. Now I have my red and my lime fabric ready to go, but we're going to do our trimming now. And trust me, if the trimming and things like this are feeling a little awkward for you and you're just beginning with this technique, it's not going to take very long when you are going to be able to eye the amount that you need to cut, and it's going to become really quick and intuitive and simple for you. It's simple to start, but I know anything that we start that's new, we feel a little, it's a little quirky for us at the beginning, but it won't stay that way. Okay, I'm putting my glue there for my red wing now. I'm going to place my fabric. Now, if you're using a fabric with a right side, wrong side, you're placing these wing fabrics right side down, just like you saw me do with the lime green on our top one. And I'll click the run button. And I'll show you that when I do this lime green one. I really would love to start seeing some of your blocks, ladies, posted over on the Facebook page. So many of you have taken these patterns to do this, so I know that a bunch of you are doing them, and I would love to see your blocks, the fabrics you're choosing, especially even if you're choosing to use the Riley Blake fabrics. If you were able to find them, that would be awesome to see what you've done in the Riley Blakes. My little bit of glue there. Now, so this fabric is right side, wrong side. So I lay it right sides together or wrong side facing up so that when it flips, you see the pretty side of the fabric. And that is the trick to piecing in the hoop. Your first piece of fabric is always laid right side up. All the other fabrics, all of them are always laid right side together so that they can flip into place and you can see the pretty side. So that's really like the only absolute in this process kind of, is because if you don't lay them out that way, you're going to be seeing the backs of your fabrics. Now, if you're using batiks, I know Riley Blake is doing this in batiks or in their confetti solids. And with the batiks, if their batiks are true batiks, which I'm guessing they are, where they look the same on the front and the back, then it won't matter as much. And to be honest, I've got my tape there now. We're going to do our final guideline box. To be honest, not all batik is created equal. We've talked about that briefly before. Some people now print batik, where it looks like batik on the front, and the fabric feels a little heavier, but on the back, it looks just like a white woven fabric. And that's because those are not true batiks. Batik is a technique, not a look necessarily. And so with a boutique, you really don't, a true batik, you don't really have a front and a back. And that's how you can tell. Alrighty, there are our second 2 flying geese units. I'll just take this out of my hoop and I'll trim them out and I'll put those together with my first 2. Now in our next video, we're going to be doing the demonstration for this center piece of this particular star block. So let me just flip around and we'll get started with that. Hi everybody, here we are at the machine, and this video is for the center block in block 7 of the Riley Blake Block Challenge, called Star Crossed. As you can see, it's an 8-point star and the cross. There we go. So you will need 1, 2, 3, 4 yellow squares, 1 pink square, and then you're going to cut several of, I think it's 4. I don't have my instructions here, but you're going to cut several squares of white and then cut them on the diagonal. All of that is in your written instruction. And this block gets made in 3 pieces. You're going to do 2 of the corners. I call that the A and the B segments. And then you're going to do 1 segment, which is the center piece here. So in this demonstration, I'm going to demonstrate the AB segment because you're going to make 2 of them exactly the same. And then I'll also demonstrate the center segment. And then the way it's put together is you just put these 2 pieces right sides together and sew, and these 2 pieces right side together and sew on the stitch line that you create, which is always the last step on Build a Quilt, Patchwork in the Hoop. All right, so here is my my hoop with my water soluble stabilizer. Here is machine step 1, and then the placement for the first block is machine step 2. And so we're going to add a little bit of glue stick right here, just in the placement area of that block. And then we are going to place our yellow. And you want to make sure that you put your fabric over this end line here, but it doesn't have to go over the end tip here, okay? This is an outer seam line that will trim out at the end, but this and the 2 sides we will trim out in the process. That will be the next thing we do after we stitch this down. So let's place it in our machine. Now I'm showing you this also because placing these white triangles is a little bit tricky in this scenario, and I wanted to show that to you so that you don't end up making as many boo-boos as I did when I started this. When I was first doing my stitching, I made a couple of mistakes and had to redo it. All right, so now we've stitched that down. Let's pull it out and take our scissors. We want to trim on this piece. This is the upper corner. We want to trim right here to about roughly 1/4 inch. There we go. Throw that away. And we want to trim the 2 side pieces here. There we go. There's one. Flip it over and do the other side. There we go. Now that's done. And now the next thing we're going to do is this upper right hand corner. Let me lift this so you can see a little bit. That upper right corner. The reason we didn't do this is because it's outside the seam line. That'll get trimmed at the end when we take it out of the stabilizer. But we're going to lay our piece down for that. That's one of our white pieces. Now, if we laid it like this and then we went to flip it, we would not cover the whole piece. So I believe yeah. Okay, so when you're laying your white fabric for this piece here, you want to lay it with the top corner of the triangle in what I'm calling the bottom right corner. So if you look at the box here, upper left, upper right, bottom left, bottom right, you want to place it so this point ends up being in the direction of the bottom right triangle. And it shouldn't sit on the line like that. It needs to come over. So you might want to line it up with the piece of fabric that's out of the yellow. You might want to line it up with that piece so that you know you have plenty in the seam allowance. There we go. Now we're going to place this. And the one thing you can always do to check is once you've laid it, just flip it and make sure. See, that's going to cover. So we're good. Now we're going to stitch this down. Now you can do 2 of these in a hooping. You need to put one up here in the top left and then move your pattern to the bottom right. But when you do it in the bottom right, you're going to have to turn your pattern around so that the point, say, So the point points in this direction, and then everything is backwards. So you'll have to do exactly backwards of what I'm showing you. So if you're a little hesitant and you don't want to fool with that, then just do one in a hooping on this one and do 2 hoopings, and then you know it'll be right each time, and you won't have to mess around with, oh, is this backwards? Am I doing it right? I'd rather use 2 pieces of stabilizer and not mess around with that. I did mine, both of mine, in a single hooping, and I had to redo some of my corners a couple times because in the upside down or backwards position, I kept getting very confused. Alrighty, now we're going to do, I'm going to take this out. Now we're going to do this lower corner here. And once again, I think on this one, let me be sure. Yeah, okay. So on this one over here, we put the fabric in the bottom corner. In this one, we want the point of our triangle to end up being in the upper left position, just like that. Okay. And you can put it up a little bit because we don't have to worry about trimming. So let's just flip this. Yep, that'll work just fine. And our pro tip, I'm going to go ahead and add my glue right in there so I don't have to mess with it later. There we go. And away we go with our stitching. So this center piece is what we call an album block. It's one of many album blocks. And it looks trickier than it is, but as long as you just follow these instructions for making your 2 AB units, and then the centerpiece is super duper simple. I tried to work it so we wouldn't, oh, look at that. I actually, wait, did I do that wrong? Let me pull this out. I may have done this wrong, guys. I did do it wrong. All right, so I told you completely wrong. Let's back up. There we go. All right, I'm gonna have to take my fabric off. Hang on just one second. Okay, I just took my fabric off and pulled out my little threads. No biggie. So in this one, you want to put your triangle point in the bottom left, not the upper left. I do apologize. Put it right there in the bottom left. So your first one, the point goes in the bottom right, and the second one, it goes in the bottom left. And now we'll go ahead and stitch that on and then flip it. See? We all make mistakes, but it's no big deal. I just clipped that right out and rearranged my fabric, and we're off to the races again. There we go. That's the right way. Okay, I don't need to do any trimming there. And then the last triangle, which goes in the upper corner, right up here, is super easy. We just lay it right across just like that, like we would with any other. And we put our needle down and we go ahead and stitch that. And I'll put the glue on at the end. Put my glue stick right there. Now I'm going to flip my triangle. I will tell you one tip for this is before you stitch these 3 pieces together, press them all, and then press again once you get it all sewn together into the center block. It just makes it lay flatter. And I told you in the original video, or the front part of the video, is that you don't have to open up the seams on this one. Just press them, leave them pressed to the side when you put this and the centerpiece together. it works out much better if you just leave them pressed to the side, pressed to the dark side, as we like to say, even though this is light fabric. So I need 2 pieces of tape here because my stitch line is going to come around this way. It's not going to catch here or here, but it could catch here and it could catch there. So let's add that tape so we get a little bit of extra reassurance from that happening. And you know, sometimes it might, even if it catches a smidge, that tape is going to keep it from really pulling up and causing problems. I've had that happen where my tape gets a little old and it pulls up a little bit, but it doesn't do near the damage that it would do normally. And I did that I used my pro tip there by putting my tape outside of the stitch line. So that is the AB segment. You're going to make 2 of those, just like that. So now I'm going to flip into a new hoop and we will do the center section. Okay, now we've got our new piece of stabilizer in, and we've loaded our new part of the pattern. This is the center piece. And so you can see it fits in here diagonally. You could rotate it and have it go straight up and down if you want to, wouldn't make a difference. But since it fits in your hoop this way, I just left mine alone. All right, so this was step 1, the boundary box. This was machine step 2, which is our center block. And for this piece, the center block is that little pink square. So here's our pink square. We've got plenty of fabric on all sides. We're going to be trimming here down each side. We won't trim outside the boundary because that gets trimmed off at the very end when we trim it out of the stabilizer. This one works from the center up to the right, and then it'll come back to the center area and we'll work the bottom half. So you're not flipping back and forth. You're doing one half, then the other half. Very easy that way. Okay. I'm going to trim down the side here, roughly a 1/4 inch. And remember, if that 1/4 inch isn't perfect, it's okay because your seams are built in. Everything is going to turn out just fine. We're just getting some of the bulk out. That's all. There we go. Now we're going to lay our next block, which is going to be a yellow block, and we're going to lay it right on top, right sides together, just like that. And then we will do that. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little line of glue there and stitch that down. This is really a pretty block. I would love, I think, to make this block where my star points were all the same color, a different background, and my 4 points of my half square triangles would be the same, and then do something different in here. I think you could do a lot with this block depending on what fabric you were going to use in a quilt, if you wanted to use this design again for something. Right, now we flip that and we're going to stitch that down. This is the one piece at the end where we have to use several pieces of tape because we have a lot of little edges. Yeah, that's fine. Now we're going to trim, and we only have one side to trim on this one, and that's this up here. Pull this out. So we just need to trim on this point right there. And then we're going to lay down our triangle fabric, which will make the point right here. So I'm going to go ahead and place my dab of glue, grab my white point, and I'm just going to lay it right sides together, just like that. Okay. The points on this centerpiece aren't fiddly at all. You just lay them down there like you normally would for a point for, say, a half square triangle, and you're done. It's that A and B block that we just made where things got a little wibbly, even for me. I think being a lefty, sometimes I tend to have a hard time getting things in the right position. because no matter how long I've been doing this, I still make that mistake occasionally. And I think that is a handedness thing going on there, but don't quote me. All right, so we're done with this upper half. Now we're going to work the bottom half. And so we're going to need our yellow square. We're going to place it right side down. I didn't iron this fabric for this demo, and so I've got a little bump there, but it looks like it's gonna lay down just fine. Swipe a little bit of my glue stick. And flip. And again, on this one, there will just be the one edge that we will trim. So are you guys glad that on Sunday we are going to do the block 8 and be all caught up? I know many of you who've been asking, when are we going to get caught up? Will like that, but I hope everyone does. I know personally I will like it. I'll like being all caught up. I don't like being a week behind. I don't like seeing the blocks out online and on the social webs and stuff before we get to them. Okie doke. Now I'm just going to place my white triangle fabric right there. Place a dab of glue. Make sure it's where I want it and stitch that down. Ooh, I thought I was going to sneeze there for a minute. It's not. Everything is in bloom here way, way earlier than it should be. We're talking like almost a month and a half early for a lot of things in this part of Illinois, which makes me a little worried for our farmers and stuff. In fact, the farmers are worried because they're not sure that because we didn't get a snowpack this year of any kind. We had one snow that lasted 3 days on the ground, and it was only maybe at the most 6 inches, maybe. And so they're a little concerned that we're going to have some water problems this year. All right, so let's take this out. Now it's stitched, but now we have to place some tape so that we can do our stitching box. All right, so it'll start here. It'll come around. It'll come down. It'll be fine until we get here. That one could be a bit of a problem. So let's place a piece of tape there. And down here, this could be a little bit of a problem. So let me grab a new piece of tape and lay that one out nice and flat. Get that down. That one won't be a problem. That one won't be a problem, but right there we could have a little bit of a problem if it got caught. So let's lay our tape there. Alrighty, so we have tape here, here, and here. Oh, and we need to do one right up at the top too. Almost forgot that one. And that's the one that most likely would get stuck. So let's make sure that one gets down. All right. Now we're going to stitch around for our stitching line, and we'll be done with the center piece. So once you've made those two pieces for the A and B, and you've made the C, then all you have to do is stitch them together. And then when you're doing your layout, like I talked to you about in the opening video, is your orange and blue special flying geese units get attached to that on each side. And then actually, I think the green is actually in the upper left corner in this block. Let me look at the picture. Yes. So the upper green is laid out in the upper left corner. So your orange and blue get attached to your album block in the center, and then your green and coral get with a red and green on top, and the magenta and royal blue get attached to a red and green special flying geese unit on the bottom. So very easy to put that together. All righty, everybody. That is the C segment for the album block. So I hope that that is helpful for you. And until next time, as always, sew life beautiful.